Good afternoon, members. Welcome back to this full council meeting. We are now on item 6, the Tay Cities Regional Deal Programme update on Perth and Kinross projects. I'd like to invite Serge Marone, Strategic Lead for Economy Development and Planning, to introduce the report. And I'd like to remind all members to please mute your devices because somebody doesn't have it muted.
It's me, so sorry. I just want to be in the chat. Still on.
Provost, while we're waiting, can I just offer my apologies? I'm going to have to leave the meeting at 15:15 for medical appointment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barrett. That's noted.
Thank you, Provost. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the process of reshaping the Tay Cities Deal Programme, so a new refreshed programme could be agreed in 2026 for the last 4 years of the programme. A first report was presented to the Council on the 7th of May, and this is a follow-up report. Paragraph 4.3 provides a summary of the projects and the status after the submission of the first assessment stage. Please note that the boards stated in the table are advisory boards and that the final decisions are made by the Tay Cities Joint Committee. 5 projects are deemed to have made good progress in terms of development. 3 have to submit change requests, and 3 are more at risk with the need of identify alternatives. The next assessment stage is in mid-October, and we will continue to support project promoters in that next phase. I'm happy to answer any question, Provost.
Question from Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Provost. On the paper, could I just ask, it's perhaps more for clarification, on strand 1, and that amounts in total to, what, 37.9 million thereabouts. There was a meeting on the 28th of August of the management group and finance directors group, and obviously I guess that would have been after this report was written. Were there any changes at that meeting, or are all 5 of these projects kind of deemed ready not to go, but to proceed? But specifically, it's more on strand 1B I'd like to ask, and it's 8.3 million where there's been change requests, 10.2 million where you've marked it as alternative, and there's under Appendix 1 it sets out a timetable, but it states that there's a possibility of alternative projects within the region. I presume the region means the whole of the Tayside region, and I think I'm right in saying that includes North Fife as well. But if there are any projects, let's say in North Fife or in Angus or in Dundee, that fail to proceed, is the funding for those projects potentially available for ourselves for alternative projects? Just trying to scope out possibilities going into early mid next year.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Donaldson. Yes, you're right. There was a meeting of the directors and the management group to look at the advancement of all of the project, and what you have in front of you is matching that understanding. So we will align with what has been discussed at that meeting. So as I said, 5 projects have progressed well, 3 are needing some change request, and 3 are more at risk. So the 5 are progressing well, so they are considered as 1A, and progressed that. The 3 needing change request, they need to do that very quickly. So so they're not moving into the next strand, and we're working with them, to do that. Some change requests are linked to a change in site location, for instance. They may have to make a further case if they have slightly changed the scope of the project. The 3 which are more at risk and are identified as alternative there. For these ones, it's not really a change request, it's more fundamental. So they will need more work to be done. And if this work is not done, they will move into strand 2, which means that money will be reallocated to a regional pot that's covering the whole of Tay-City's area. But that will be exactly the same in the other areas, on Argus, Dundee and North East 5, where effectively projects which are not able effectively to show that they can deliver or make the case, there will be a regional pot, and that regional pot will be accessible across the region by project promoters.
Okay, I think that's clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bailey next.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you, officers, for this report, which gives us a good overview of the status of Tay-City's deals projects. Thank you for that. My question is really just seeking some clarification on one of the programmes mentioned in the table at 4.3. The Perth Bus and Rail interchange is listed with just PKC in brackets after it as the delivery partner. Why don't we see Network Rail there? Like, for example, with the library, you've got the Library Trust with Aerospace Perth, Aerospace Kinross. You've got the aerospace body there. Why are Network Rail not listed there? And then as a short follow-up, the funding there is 15 million. Was that the amount that was also to cover the station transformation, or is there a separate amount to cover station transformation? And maybe that's why Network Rail aren't listed here. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Bailey. So the names that you have listed on the table are the lead project promoters. So obviously there are other partners involved in each of these projects. So that's why Network Rail is not mentioned there. It doesn't mean that we're not working with them and Network Rail. And the funding of 15 million, this is the funding allocated through the Tay-City deal, is not the full total cost of the project. So obviously there will be other partners coming into play to complete the funding package.
Thank you. Point of clarification from the Leader of the Council.
Thanks, Provost. It was just on the back of Councillor Donaldson's question about to clarify that the funding if goes into the pot for distribution if, say, Dundee or Angus don't fulfil the criteria for bringing a project forward. But it also works the other way. If we don't, it goes back into the pot. So it's not just beneficial to PKC, it could be detrimental. So that's why we have to ensure that we've got projects that are fundamental.
Just wanted to know that it was a two-way process, and it's not just the money was specific to Perth and Kinross. So there's leeway, there's flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Provost. My questions are regarding paragraph 5.1 on page 43 of the pack. And talks about the proposals there, and some of that we've discussed. However, it also says that we recognise that we might have to suggest alternative projects to be delivered if the original projects can't be. I wondered what opportunity there might be for elected members to be involved in suggesting alternative projects for any money that might be looking for a new home. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Duff. So that will be the process of strand 2. And obviously at Tay-City's, the joint committee, the Tay-City's joint committee will be updated on progress on that. The management group is currently looking at how the process will take place for strand 2 and any criteria that needs to be addressed by project promoters. I think in looking for alternative projects, it would be important that if you have alternative projects, that you think are suitable, but I will maybe wait for having the criteria before starting to look for ideas, because as part of the criteria, for instance, there could be a minimum size of project in terms of value, which may limit obviously the type of projects can come forward. But definitively we can work collectively to identify the right alternatives so we can make the best case at Tay-City's level.
Just have a wee follow-up on that, if it's okay, Provost. Just in relation to timescales, because obviously the paragraph 5.1 says that alternative projects in the form of a strategic outline case will need to be submitted by the 27th of February, which isn't too far away. I just wondered if the timescales you're talking about allow us time to have some kind of input into that ahead of that piece of work.
Thank you. And I think that's why it's so important to have a pipeline of projects which are already worked out. And if there are any timescale constraints for each of these projects, that they are minimized. So, for instance, planning, for instance, land ownership, for instance, funding packages, all of this will have to be lined up. So that's why it's important to look at what the council has already agreed as part of the strategy and action plan. In the different area or sectors. It could be the tourism sector, it could be an economic action plan, it could be in other action plan already agreed by the council, which obviously reduce the time for submission and development of this project. At the last the joint committee in April, that the timescale was extended to allow more time effectively to submit these outline business cases. So this is the deadline we are working towards at the moment. But it will also depend on what's happened, at the end of strand 1B and how much money is available going back into the pot. So there will be a review of that, and I'm happy to provide an update, in between if it's needed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, Provost. Yes, it's on the same theme. Do we have a list of shovel-ready projects, so to speak? And would it be possible to circulate it to members so they can have a look and see what's actually thought about in terms of what we might present?
So as I said, there's a list through action plans and so on. So if you take the tourism action plan, which is approved by the Enterprise Vice Committee, you've got the economic action plan, where there's a list of projects there. We need to identify them, which the ones which are the most suitable, for that. But we're happy effectively to share that, with elected members.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. So thank you very much, Mr. Maroon. Oh, late question from Leader of the Council then.
It was just to let Serge give the clarity that this timetable is not set by us or by him as officers. This timetable was set when we were at, I think John will remember that we managed to get extended back in April because it was going to be an even tighter time scale. So I just wanted everybody to know it's not our economic development team that's setting this in such a short fashion. It's actually been set by is that correct, Serge?
It is correct, yes, it's correct.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much, Serge, for that. And we'll now invite the Leader of the Council to move the report.
Thanks, Provost. At our meeting in May, we noted the approach approved by the Taste Cities Joint Committee to reshape the Taste Cities Deal programme. The objective is to have a new, refreshed programme to be agreed with partners and governments in June 2026. For the last 4 years of the programme, which has to be completed by 2030. This involves an assessment of all projects currently in development within each local area, authority area. Milestones and deadlines are detailed in Appendix 1. The first milestone was in June, and this report provides an update on where each project is in terms of development. I'm pleased to see that a number of projects are progressing well in terms of development. Some other projects have more work to do, and some projects, unfortunately, are at risk. Perth Kinross has been successful in securing funding for projects at the signature of the deal in 2020. And during the last 5 years collectively, we have delivered significant investments. These include investment in the Barley Hub, an advanced plant growth centre at James Hutton Institute, Perth Museum and Pitlochry Theatre. The next few weeks will be important to meet the second milestone and to support project promoters to demonstrate that their projects can be developed and delivered. If they cannot, these projects may have to be decommitted. If decommitted, funding was to become available across the region, we have also to be ready to propose and support new projects so we do not lose this funding as a local authority. I'd like to thank our officers for their work in the past few months, which shows real progress, and I would ask our officers to continue their work to maximise investments for Perth and Kinross and provide us with a further update at a future meeting. And I welcome Councillor Cuthbert's suggestion that any other projects that we are looking at be forwarded to all elected members as soon as that's practicable. So I'm very pleased to move the paper for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Deputy Leader to second.
Yeah, happy to second, Provost.
Thank you very much. Are there any amendments on the report? If there are no amendments, comments. Councillor Duff, first comment.
Thank you, Provost. Yes, like Councillors Lang and Drysdale sit on the Taste Cities deal committee, and we're obviously halfway through that 10-year deal, and right now it's correct, to review and assess the second half of the 10-year term. This is an important process that we've described here, and we need to make sure that Perth and Kinross Council makes the most of the £300 million which was invested by the two governments in our local authority area. I welcome the report and the next steps, and I hope the elected members will support officers in their work in terms of delivering the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Bailey.
Thank you. Just echoing the comments of others, really to say it's good to see that this situation is being proactively managed. I think it's inevitable that change will occur over a 10-year programme that was first drawn up in 2016. It's inevitable there'll be some change and tweaking, and it's good to know that we're managing a process here of doing that and making sure that the taxpayer money still gets well delivered. However, one remark I wanted to make is that we'll come to this in the next paper, but I wanted to note at this juncture that it's a really unfortunate choice of words on this paper lists the Perth bus and rail interchange as being on track, when in reality the next paper is the first time the public are hearing that the planned fully integrated bus and rail station is not set to be delivered. The notion that bus and rail integration for Perth is very much off the rails at the moment, but we'll come to that later.
Thank you. Leader, do you wish to sum up?
No, thanks.
Good, thank you very much. I like this way of doing business. Members, can we agree the report? Thank you. Members, item 7 is Perth City Centre Development and Design Framework Review Update. That's quite a snappy title there, Steve. And this will be presented by Steve MacDonald, Economic Development Manager, Tourism, Culture and Place, almost as long as the title of the report.
Okay, thank you, Provost. Good afternoon, members. I've got a few slides to run through. I know you've had a long morning, but if you could please bear with me, that would be great. If I could just get the first slide on the screen. Thank you very much. Thank you. So this report provides an update on the Perth City Centre Development and Design Framework, which was originally presented to Council in September 2024. It outlines progress since the Council's approval to consult on the framework, a summary of feedback from the engagement and public consultation, proposals being advanced or prepared for next stage development, and a pipeline of projects ready for progression when funding becomes available. It's well discussed that cities need to respond to changing requirements of living, working and visiting. The proposal set out here set a response to these challenges. We've identified a series of investment areas or quarters where targeted intervention can deliver the greatest impact. The areas are supported by a programme of streetscape enhancements and property improvements, all of which improve accessibility, create and support a mix of uses, provide opportunities for local enterprise, enhance our public realm and ensure future growth and opportunity. Next slide, please. One of the things that we are keen to ensure is that the framework aligns and fits with our overall vision for Perth. So locally we have our Invest in Perth and our Perth City and Towns brands, which successfully speak to different audiences. We also have specific plans relating to areas such as transport, conservation and planning. So all these need to fit with our overall vision to make one of Europe's great small cities, connecting placemaking, sustainability, connectivity, enterprise and inclusion. Next slide, please. So just want to set out a profile of Perth City, just to give it a sense of scale. We're obviously a small city comparably, but all these statistics hopefully illustrate that the city is a key driver of our local economy. And the figures relate to the whole of Perth, not just the kind of inner ring road of the city centre. So using the boundaries at Broxden, Inverarmond and Friarton. The population figure will be well known, but interestingly, there are almost 1,500 businesses ranging from micro and SMEs to larger employers such as SSE and Aviva. Within these businesses, there's also over 30,000 jobs, which is 30% of the total for Perth and Kinross. In spite of the challenges facing city centres, our business vacancy rate is just under 6%, which was well below the Scottish average, and that figure is taken from those registered for non-domestic rates. Next slide, please. This slide highlights where those key employment clusters are and where a significant amount of the city's economic activity take place. And it's really useful for us because we have data in each of those clusters. So we see what the key sectors are and also where the growth sectors are and growing companies as well, which enables us to kind of tailor and target our support. So that could be around infrastructure requirements, or it could potentially be around dedicated business support programs. So that's really helpful for us to kind of identify and map out where those key employment clusters are. Next slide, please. The framework has been developed to build on existing planning, economic design and development guidance, and every intervention is designed to support economic growth. As I mentioned, the uses of city centres have and will continue to change. We therefore need a mixed-use economy in the city centre, including culture, leisure, residential, food and drink and retail, to name but a few. Aligning the framework with our transport and mobility strategies will ensure that the city centre is easily accessible, walkable and connected. By identifying and having a concerted and proactive approach to vacant and underdeveloped sites and buildings, we can help to attract support and investment. Ensuring that our marketing is on message, promoting what we already have, but also the new initiatives and activities proposed through the framework will help to attract businesses, residents and visitors. And through all this, we want to protect, enhance and promote the unique character of Perth. Next slide, please. The council leader touched on some of these completed projects and during the last paper, but I just wanted to kind of highlight some of those which have been really successful integrations into the city centre. And I think it's important to reflect on that because it gives confidence and reassurance that we've got that ability to deliver big transformational projects. So through the Perth Transport Futures project, the A9 85 junction and Crosstail Link Road have been delivered with future phases in delivery. Perth Creative Exchange, Perth Theatre, Mill Street Regeneration, St Paul's Church and Perth Museum are also other initiatives that have been delivered over the last few years which have had a positive impact on the city centre. Next slide, please. So I just want to take you through each of the investment quarters, albeit briefly. More detail is provided in your papers along with the consultation responses to these. In most cases, we don't have investment for these plans, but for me, that's even more reason that we develop and proceed with our ideas. We need to be ready to secure public sector funding when it becomes available, and having well constructed and consulted plans which fit with a wider vision will help to do that. Similarly, with private sector investment, we need to present a coherent and exciting plan to developers. We did carry out an extensive process of consultation engagement on the back of the last council meeting in September when this paper was presented, and that included through our online portal. There was a series of engagement sessions with businesses of all different sizes, relevant networks and associations, for example, Perth and Kinross Heritage Trust, residents, property agents, and a series of one-to-ones. So we did an extensive, it was really important to capture the views on this piece of work, and that's summarised in the report, but full details are also included as an appendix. So just running through each of the key investment zones. So the main objective of the Mill Quarter, as you will know, is to provide a city centre location for the proposed PH2O leisure development as agreed at Council in June of this year. A key objective of that development is increased footfall, so complementary initiatives such as public space and improved active transport links are key. The Culture Quarter is an important area within Perth City Centre, includes Perth Theatre, Perth Art Gallery and Perth Museum, all complemented by public realm which has seen significant investment. The vision for this area is to build on this and extend to Murray Street, including renovation of the Lower City Mills as a visitor attraction and commercial space, streetscape improvements, areas for events and better utilisation of key buildings. Now, we have been successful in securing external funding to take some of these plans forward, albeit at a design stage, and I'll come on to outline our approach, but this is one area where we've started to develop a brief to progress our thinking around the Culture Quarter. The station quarter is an important strategic area with key transport links and hubs including Perth bus and rail stations. It also represents one of the key gateways to the city. As outlined in the last paper, this is one area where we do have investment up to £50 million through the City Region deal. Now, significant time has passed since the original application to the City Region deal, so an options appraisal was required to reassess the options for delivery, and this is included in your papers as Appendix 3. As part of this, we're obviously working with and involving Network Rail, and they have confirmed to us that wider plans for Perth Railway Station will not be implemented for several years. Initial work is signal and track related, and the ability to release any potential land to support a fully integrated bus and rail station will not be recognised for some time, if at all. As a result, the options appraisal report has identified the preferred options for delivery and include a redeveloped bus station on the existing site alongside community space enhancement, an improved public space on the existing railway station car park to create an improved and more accessible gateway to the city centre, creation of a new car park replacing the existing one outside the railway station, an active travel hub at the former Arnold Clark site on St Leonard's Bank. And to complement this and enhance that gateway into the city centre, a series of pedestrian-focused interventions along Leonard Street and Hospital Street to enhance the routes and connections into the city centre with a kind of key focus on accessibility. We are currently working through this, including the development of a business case, and we will of course involve members throughout this process. For me, it's really important that we drive forward to begin delivery of projects within the framework, which will in turn help to push momentum and help unlock further investment. As you will see from the paper, these are initiatives that were well supported through the consultation. The next two areas are one which require further development. There's a range of projects within the framework, and we probably, can maybe quite crudely kind of split them into short, medium and longer term. But the next two areas are perhaps a little bit longer term, but nonetheless we are looking at them. So the Harbour Quarter looks at reimagining the area to create a space for leisure-based uses, commercial space, connections to the city centre and key assets such as Moncrieff Island. Along with UHI Perth, the framework also looks at a university quarter, making better use of the existing campus for a wide range of learning opportunities, potential city centre locations and improve access to the existing campus. As always, delivery is key to these plans, so to move from vision to action, a two-stage methodology is proposed. This approach will help to create a practical and adaptable route to action. Stage 1 is about identifying key projects and options appraisals. We will prioritise those projects which scored well through the consultation, where we have investment such as the bus and rail station, and the most impactful and of course the ones that are deliverable as well. Stage 2 will advance to concept design, concept market testing and delivery plans. We're asking Council today to approve the revised draft city centre development and design framework, remit officers to progress proposals as funding allows, and agree that the strategic lead for economy development and planning will present developed proposals and delivery programmes to the relevant committee. Myself and Serge are happy to take any questions, and we also have Alan Farmington here, who's the project lead, and Kirsty Easton, who's their inward investment lead as well. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First question is from Councillor Willie Robertson.
Thank you, Provost. Can I ask, I was actually staggered firstly at the size of this report. I think it got into the Guinness Book of Records as the biggest report I've ever seen, 230 pages for heaven's sake. I just shudder to think how much it would cost to produce this stuff. Anyway, I was going to ask why the report doesn't clearly set out what the Council's priorities are, rather than have a list of projects, some of which we might take years and years to bring forward. Surely we should be prioritising what's achievable given the money that we can get in the at least the medium term. So why is there no real priorities outlined in the report?
Okay, thank you for your question. I suppose just on the original one, in terms of the size of the paper, we were really keen that we provided an evidence base of the consultation responses. That's something that we get quite a lot when we go out to consultations, that kind of public face to that. So there was a lot of pages in the report, but a lot of that was the consultation responses. So we felt that that was relevant to include. In terms of those projects, you're right. I mean, it's really important that we kind of focus on delivery, and I think that's why I talked a bit more in detail about the bus and rail station, because that is one where we do have investment for. We do think it'll be impactful and make a big difference to the city centre. So that's been a real focus for us. And I think, you know, through the other areas, we will kind of follow that methodology of developing projects. So we have developed a brief for the culture quarter, because I think that's something we can certainly look for investment, or certainly from a public sector investment. And also the building and streetscape improvements as well. That's a key aspect for the city centre. So we have listed in the report some of those key buildings, and we've been engaging with the property agents to look at what the barriers to these are, what the potential opportunities and uses are. So I think your point and your challenge is absolutely fair, but you know, a bit of reassurance that, you know, this is a big document and it's a big plan. And I think it's really important that we have that overall ambitious vision, but we are kind of distilling those down, and we'll continue to kind of engage with the relevant committees on when projects are taken forward.
Thank you. Councillor Duff next, please.
Thank you, Stephen, for the report. I think there's a lot of good and useful information in it in terms of the consultation response. And I note there was strong support for a large number of the issues that we consulted upon, and that's great. However, there were a number which didn't receive support, things like the pedestrianisation of Mill Street, Murray Street, the new residential development on Glover Street, making green space at Scott Street car park, relocation of library services to the High Street, and converting on-street parking and the Mercure Hotel car park into seating, planters and artwork areas. All of these areas of the consultation didn't receive support. So I wonder what happens now to these suggestions or proposals. Are they removed from our plan?
So my thinking on that, they wouldn't necessarily be removed from our plan. These are pretty headline concepts on some of these. I think in some areas we were able to present a bit more detail behind the plans, but some of the initiatives that you talked about were fairly high level. So from our perspective, we wouldn't prioritise those, because I think when we come up with, you know, the projects we want to secure investment for, we need to, you know, listen to that consultation. So absolutely, that's what we'll do. But you know, I suppose it's very similar to the Tay Cities deal. Things change over time as well. So yeah, it may be that these ideas develop or become a bit more popular, a bit more impactful in terms of what needs to be done for the city centre. So I think, you know, they still form part of the plan, but they wouldn't maybe be prioritised at this moment in time.
Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Provost. First of all, can I thank Serge and Steve for this report? And I guess there's two ways of looking at things, but I would say it's thorough, it's comprehensive, it's a long-term vision, and it's a report, even though we can't do everything straight away, that makes you think. What I do want to ask, though, and I said to Steve before, is on the Mill Quarter, and two specific questions, and they're actually very much interlinked. It's not just about Thimble Row, not just about Mill Street. Steve, can I ask, we didn't get the funding from the Levelling Up Fund of some 3 million plus. The UK government eventually didn't level up. But on Lower City Mills, what is the position right now? Is the building completely empty? And we're looking to purpose for reuse of the building. It still has a water wheel in it, but what can we do short term to protect the building? And the interlinked question is obviously the whole question of the lead. And we do, you know, the section, you know, quarter report refers to Mill Street, Thimble Row, but it's also a position on the lead as a whole, going from centre of Perth out to Dunkeld Road, and the potential there, it does seem to me, is immense, especially when you're next to Fairfield and to Tulloch, and it's not just footways, pathways, you know, the allotments, you know, is a huge area of leisure space. Okay, thanks.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Donaldson. So I think firstly on Lower City Mills, obviously we weren't successful in that application previously to the Levelling Up Fund, but for me, and that was kind of before my time here, but I think it needs to be, and it's one of the buildings, the key buildings I talked about earlier on. I think we need to be absolutely crystal clear in terms of what it is that we want to achieve through that. We need to know what some of the key barriers are. Then I think that will help us maybe to enable that investment. Maybe we're not quite there yet in terms of establishing what that potential use is and what that demand is. So that is a lot of the work that we're doing with property agents and whatnot. So that work is ongoing. In terms of the kind of delayed, I mean, these investment zones and quarters, they're not set in stone. They're there to enable other development, and there's key links and accessibility is really important. So I think delayed has been something that's been talked about for a while. So I think we'd certainly be interested in engaging with any interested parties or interested groups. I know there's kind of the Friends of Delayed group, for example, set up to look at how we can start developing some of those projects, because there's been lots of talk here today about developing a pipeline of projects, and that's the kind of thing that we want to do. And Perth's a very walkable city, and that's one of the key links, particularly to some of the areas that you mentioned. So we'd be absolutely up for looking at that as one potential project.
Can I just say thank you? And yeah, I just so much think the Lade corridor is so much interlinked with the Mill Quarter, and it goes together and with Lower City Mills. So thank you.
Deputy Provost.
Thank you very much. You said in your introduction that it had been intimated to you that Network Rail had said that they didn't have a time frame for any release of land, if at all. Everything I've heard suggests that ScotRail have no use for the carriage sidings beyond their use for the present diesel trains, and they will not be needed for the electric trains, which will be coming fairly soon. What evidence or what information do you have to hand that suggests a future railway use for the carriage siding site, as opposed to the rest of the station? Thanks.
Thank you. So as part of this project, and obviously particularly the bus and rail interchange, we are engaging, and Network Rail are very much part of that project group. And I look to Alan here, but I think we probably meet them bi-monthly at least on this particular area. So that's the information that we've been given around the timelines of probably what was originally proposed as part of the Tay City region deal. And we have to kind of obviously line up the funding with that. So that's the challenge for us, is that the funding doesn't necessarily align with the timelines that we've been provided with through Network Rail. So hence the reason we've kind of carried out this options appraisal and looked at a different development, albeit I think a lot of the kind of objectives and benefits would be similar that would come from this. But I'll go back to my point. I think it's really important that we deliver through this framework early on. And I think here's an area where we have investment, and I think it would be impactful investment. I think we need to invest in our key infrastructure. So that's the reason why we as a service think that this is really important. But I suppose to be reassured, those conversations with Network Rail are ongoing, and if anything was to change, then obviously that would reflect that in what we were proposing. But we can only, I suppose, go on the information that we've been given as part of these kind of operational calls with Network Rail.
Thank you. I would merely ask you to press them as hard as you can. Thank you.
Yeah, please be assured that we are doing that. Thanks.
Leader of the Council.
Thanks, Provost. I welcome this report. I think that we have been asking as administration, I'm sure other elected members as well, for a suite of projects that can be brought forward off the shelf when the whims of government change and ask. We often end up having to knock a square peg in a round hole to apply for funding and don't get it. So we've been asking for this. It's great to see it come forward. Any funding that comes from any government or indeed any charitable body, you've got something sitting there. So do you feel that the benefit to us as a local authority having this suite of proposals is enabling you to be able to bid for extended areas of funding?
So it keeps going off. All right. Okay. Right. Thank you. I'll start that answer again. And no, I think this is a really exciting piece of work, and it was in place before I started, certainly the draft. So it's very much Alan that can take the credit, and it's been leading on this stuff. But it is really important. I think it's really important to have that overall vision and how all this knits together, and that's a lot of the work that we've been doing to try and make sure this is all complementary. So that overall vision for the city centre is really important. But down a kind of peg from that is developing these projects, and that's kind of what we are focused on. It's one of the, if not the key priorities for our team at the moment, is to kind of focus on bringing these projects forward. So we are ready to react in a positive sense when public sector funding becomes available. I would also add into that as well private sector funding. Through our inward investment approach, we're always looking for private sector funding as well. And what you hear from private sector investors is they're looking for an exciting plan that businesses signed up to, that the local authorities signed up to, as well as other partners. So I think to attract significant and meaningful public and private sector investment, it's really important that we have this plan in place and we start to deliver on it as well, because that's the way we get momentum and a bit of credibility behind it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Forbes.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Can I ask about the harbour quarter? We seem to be in this situation where we've tried to close the harbour, but it seems to be almost impossible. Does the plans that you have for the harbour, are they based on the fact that the harbour is closed? And if that's the case, do you have any progress you can update us on in that regard?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Forbes. Yes, the framework is based on the decision made by the council to effectively close the harbour for commercial traffic and focus on leisure use at the harbour. So it's a very long-term vision for that quarter. Meanwhile, we are obviously trying to implement the decision from the council to close the harbour for commercial traffic, and we've been obviously working with Transport Scotland over a number of months with that. And I think we're getting close to the publication of the harbour revision order for that purpose.
Thank you, Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, Provost. I think it's a great report, very comprehensive. Well done, officers. My question is if and when we might see similar reports for some of the towns round about Perth and Kinross. So, Blairgowrie, Rattray, Crieff, Auchterarder, Kinross, and so on. So I think it's really useful, but I'd like to see some for other parts of Perth and Kinross, not just Perth.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's a fair challenge. I think we'll prioritise this with the city centre, the Perth City being a key economic driver, and I think that's really important. But your point is well made, and something we've discussed within our team as well, about maybe not perhaps the same level of kind of depth or detail, but certainly having something similar in place for our key towns as well. So I gave the slide about the economic profile of Perth, and it is a key driver, but there's a lot of activity, more activity even happens out with our city as well. So it's really important that we consider that. So I can reassure you, over the coming period we will be looking at our kind of key towns and focusing on that as well. I don't know if Serge wants to come in on that one.
And what's important here is we've got the methodology now, so I think we could apply the same methodology to the towns, or as Stephen said, maybe not to the scale of it, the depth of it, but still using the same methodology in terms of identifying project, option appraisal, and moving on to delivery, side.
If I might come back, just you said the coming period. Could you perhaps define that? Is that the next 10 years, the next year, next 6 months?
I'm not going to give an exact time scale. It'll certainly be shorter than 10 years, but I think we will be looking over the coming months to kind of start putting that in place in terms of having a plan for each area. I would say a lot of the stuff does exist. There are a lot of plans out there, as you will know, as elected members. And I think the point of this is trying to bring some of those things together, whether that be capital or revenue. But I think particularly from a capital sense, in terms of that investment, it's trying to bring together and coordinate a lot of these different plans, because that makes it more impactful, and it makes it much easier to secure investment as well if we can kind of present that joined up approach.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett next, Peter Barrett.
Thanks, Provost. I welcome the place ambitions on page 104 of the report, and the comments or statements about the Riverside promenade. I think, unfortunately, content of the framework is a bit one-sided. It seems to focus too much on the west side of Tay Street and not on the east side, including Norrie Miller Walk and the Rodney Gardens. And it's slightly disappointing to see that there's nothing in it about creating active travel routes across the Tay to link those up, because I do think that the report's right is that it is one of Perth's prime assets, and I think we should be thinking of both sides of the Tay as a golden route. If you look at the west side of Tay Street at the moment, it's a mishmash of guddled signage. I think an obstacle course of a mixed use footway from the railway bridge up to the Perth Bridge, and things that we really should be getting sorted out. It's got a series of stop-start, abruptly ending cycle lanes that don't join up, and I think there are some pretty immediate benefits that we could be making to Tay Street, particularly now that we no longer have Scottish Water disrupting the length of it. But we seem to have returned to a situation where we've got the worst of what was in Tay Street, rather than moving for any improvement after those works. And those were points that were made clearly to myself, to Councillor Liz Barrett and to Councillor Angus Forbes when we were out with the Kiddigo Cycle group at the weekend. So I'd be grateful if we can take that on board. And also a point I made when I think we had a Perth councillors briefing on this was city centre needs to be much more animated, attractive for young families. We need a focus on micro play parks and pocket parks, which actually offer something for young parents and children's, not necessarily just having them to leave the city centre and go to the North Inch or South Inch if they want to play with their kids in between doing shopping. So I think a greater focus on that sort of streetscape improvement would be really helpful. I don't know if you can comment on that, Steve. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, before Steve is coming in, if I can say, the framework is really interfacing with other piece of work that we are doing at the moment. And it is really in terms of supporting the Perth Transport Future Phase 4, and particularly the Perth Circulation Plan. So the circulation plan is being developed and will hopefully address some of your concern there in terms of the circulation and the different elements into that. So that would be a key document to look at the same time as the framework, where the framework is looking more at the placemaking element of it. I don't know if Steve wants to talk about more the
city centre forum that we had as well. So I suppose it's maybe similar to the point made about the Lade earlier. I mean, I suppose you have to draw a line somewhere in terms of these frameworks and these plans, but it can be a little bit artificial as well. I completely agree with you on the kind of walk over at the Northern Miller and whatnot. It's a key asset and it's so close to the city centre. So I think despite the fact that it's not explicitly named within the framework, we'll still be working on projects that are not named within the framework to progress them. So, and I know we've had discussions around the new owner of Rodney Gym and also the Bloom groups as well, about maybe trying to kind of reinstate some of and animate some of the signage and paths and stuff over there. So to be reassured, that work is still ongoing, just because it's not explicitly named within the framework.
I think it would be nice to see it explicitly named. I take some reassurance from what Sarah says, because to be honest, I think the phase 4 of the Cross Tay Link Road is the Cinderella phase, and beginning to wonder whether, in terms of Main Street Bridge End, Gowrie Street and Dundee Road, it's ever going to be invited to the ball. So it would be good to see rapid progress on that.
Okay, Councillor Mayor next, please.
Thank you, Provost. Stephen, I just wondered at point 3.9 in the report, you're talking about sorry, I'll let you get it. 3.9. Well, I'll just keep talking. At that paragraph, you're talking about a complementary piece of work around retail, which is being incorporated within the framework, and was talking about the vacancies on secondary streets. You said that obviously some specific strategies are proposed for various large buildings, etc., former Debenham stores, the former Beales stores. Within the paragraph that preceded those premises, it was said, however, it states the high-profile vacancies will need a proactive approach by premises owners supported by the council, and recommended a dedicated occupier team to target new tenants. I wondered if you could give us any details of how you expect that team to be comprised and how they will work and how they will target new tenants. Thank you.
That piece of work has already started. So we will obviously, through the report and through the framework, name some of these key buildings which have been well documented over the last few years. And do you know what? In some of these, there has been quite a bit of interest over the years, whether that be retail or other uses as well. But we've maybe been a bit light in terms of what the detail and some of the barriers and opportunities are around that. So I know Kirsty, our Inward Investment Lead, has met with a lot of the property owners and property agents as well. So that kind of small team to kick things off. But we really are in costing things out as well. What are these cost barriers? Are there potential different uses that we can look at? So obviously we're linking with our planning colleagues as well. But I think just taking each of those and almost creating a bit of an inward investment prospectus around it, like we would do for bigger propositions. But I think that's really needed. It's not easy because we don't own and control a lot of these buildings, so it's really challenging. But I think we need to do everything within our powers to establish what the potential barriers are and what the opportunities and where we can to try and realise that. And we're getting a bit of throughput in terms of that. There's a few new things opening in the city centre, particularly food and drink establishments, and there's a couple of retail opportunities coming into play as well. So it's kind of starting to filter through, but a real focus effort on that is what we'll be doing.
Thank you.
Councillor Cole next.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you for officers for this report. It's great. I love it. I don't mind the size of it either, because there's a lot of information in there. I do have questions around engagement, public engagement. I think on page 51, I'm just going to pull up page 51, you talk about consultation, and appendix 2 though only talks about the online consultation piece, but yet on I think page 110 in the engagement summary there was Perth Kinross Business Partnership engagement session and an in-person drop-in session at 2 High Street, but at least I can't see where the output from those particular engagement sessions has been captured. So that's kind of, if you can maybe point me in that direction. The other point really is that the number of people engaging is quite low, relatively speaking, many of whom don't live in Perth City, although that's not a problem because they come here and work, or they might come from just outside Perth. So I'm just wondering if we have any plans to widen that engagement and try and improve it more. Because I think the more people we can get on board and the more feedback we can get, the more robust our proposals will be coming forward in some detail. So that's, and my final question really is on page, I can't remember what page it's on. It's on the, I'll find the page, it's on page, it's in appendix 2, where you've got percentages against the number of responses, and the percentages come up to well more than 100%, and I don't understand them. So.
Thank you. I'll take each of those in turn. So I think when it comes to engagement consultation, we always try to get everyone to go online and fill out the forms, and not everyone's always keen to do that, but that's the best way for us to capture things. So hopefully most of the people who kind of came through the doors in terms of that went on and filled that online questionnaire. Where they didn't, we always had officers there, so myself and Alan, or both of us in most occasions, as well as the urbanists who worked on the design framework itself. We were pretty much always present at these sessions, whether that be presentations to business partnership, one-to-ones, or the drop-in sessions as well. So all that was kind of taken and has been incorporated within the report where relevant. On the second part of the question is, I thought the response was okay, because it's quite a difficult concept maybe for people to get their head around. There's probably more obvious things that people are engaged in because they get it a bit more, and this is maybe a harder sell. But I think from that, and the methodology for developing these options hopefully explains this, but there will be a process of consultation as we move down into these more specific projects as well. So it doesn't end here. There will be, so whether it's bus and rail station, whether it's extension of the culture quarter, we will do a process and a period of consultation engagement on that, including with members and public and businesses as well. The third part of your question was the total percentages. I'd need to check that one for you. I'm not sure on that one. Can I maybe get someone to check that one out and come back to you on that one? Is that okay? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second question from Councillor Robertson next, please.
Thank you, Provost. Going back to the questions that were raised by Deputy Provost Parrott and Councillor Donaldson with regard to the bus and change interchange, the rail and bus interchange. I think no councillors in this in Perth Kinross Council ever takes no for an answer. So I'm really puzzled the fact that just because Network Rail have said no, that we have accepted that. Given it's a major priority, and it has been a major priority for this council for as long as I can remember, that we have a fully integrated rail and bus service based on the station, I can't understand why we've accepted that. We've got part of the funding already from the Tay-Cities deal, so surely we're not going to accept what they say, and there must be other ways we can put pressure on Network Rail to actually come to the table and allow us to take this plan forward. Can you explain why we don't do that?
Thank you. Well, I'd probably say we are doing our best to do exactly what you said, and we are engaging with Network Rail on a regular basis and have been over the last few years on this particular project. It's frustrating for us as officers as well, because that was obviously what was outlined originally within the Tay-Cities region deal. So, sense and get the frustration, but from my perspective, if we don't own the land, we don't have full control of that. So it's for me, it's about we need to get a bit of momentum behind this framework, providing it's the right projects where we can impact and control. And this is an area where there's just a bit of a misfit in terms of the timelines that Network Rail are talking about and the timelines of the Tay-Cities region deal money. And that would be my concern, that we didn't secure that investment for projects that I think are well needed, were well reflected through the consultation and would be impactful. So it is a bit of a kind of dichotomy, but I get the question, I get the frustration, but I think we can only control what we can control almost.
Thank you for that. Can I possibly come back, Provost? I was going to say, as councillors, our job is actually to support our officers in taking forward the plans for the council. So would it help if we actually put political leverage through the government on Network Rail to allow us to take forward these proposals? Can I ask that of the Leader of the Council? Thank you.
As always, happy to write a letter with the backing of everybody in here. Network Rail have their own programme of works, which I don't think at the moment, and I'm going to say in my speech, the stars don't align with our, they may come in 6 or 7 years, but we've got to, if we're going to keep the Tay-Cities deal money, we'll have to be looking to spend it in the next 4. So yes, happy to put some pressure or write a, if all the leaders want to write a letter to Scott Network Rail and see what happens. Councillor Robertson, because obviously that myself, like everybody else, will always try and fight the hardest for Perth and Kinross without having any politics involved in it, and I think we do well as a local authority in doing that. But my main concern at the moment, I think, along with officers, is that we don't want to be having to go to find an alternative for £16.5 million because we're not going to deliver what's asked. So happy to go with if it's suggested by MD Elson. If any of the other, I'm happy to write myself, but it would look better if we all wrote or co-signed a letter. So I will I was going to say I will formulate a letter, but I will get somebody who's much more literate than I am to formulate the letter for me, and I'll pass it round the other group leaders and see if they're willing to sign it as well.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Provost. My comment is with regard to the comments that are at paragraph 4.3 on page 51. And that was about a strong desire from the survey not to forget about some of the basics which we need to provide in our city. Things like improving retail shopping, providing local services and having a cleaner, safer city centre. Now, I appreciate that these measures may not have a specific home within this plan, but I would just like to have some comfort or comment that we are noting these comments and we are picking up on these elsewhere within council services, if not within this specific plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's really important that we get our housekeeping in order, as well as these bigger plans, which on the whole have been pretty well received by people. But it is really important that we address some of the issues that you talked about, so they aren't being ignored. We can lead, support some of them, but we need partners to do that as well. So there has been a city centre forum has been set up and kind of in partnership with the business and the Perth Kinross business partnerships, so kind of offshoot of that. We held our first meeting a couple of months ago now. It was really well attended and it was a really robust but positive conversation. It's not just us there, it's other partners such as police and other public sector agencies, as well as a number of businesses. So I completely agree with you. I think it's really important that we do that and these issues are captured and addressed. And I think we can do that through the forum in partnership with our other public sector and private sector bodies.
Thank you, Councillor Colin Stewart.
Thanks, Provost. I wasn't going to ask anything, but I've been goaded by two of my elected member colleagues into asking about, in terms of the place ambitions, number 5, a quality city structure, the 4th bullet point there, which were page 7 of the actual framework itself. Refers to continuing Perth City of Light project through public art, lighting and design. In reflecting on Councillor Cuthbert's question about looking for projects outside of Perth and a framework for other places in the council area, I thought that we had stopped any more spending on the City of Light project. I didn't think there was any more to come, because it's obviously that is obviously an area where if all of our rural areas don't have such a framework and aren't getting money spent on beautifying them, but we're putting fancy lighting installations in the city of Perth, it creates a tension between the city and the rural areas. So how much more of the City of Light project is there to come?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Stewart. You're right, the programme has been paused, but we had also to finish what was committed. So the last project is St John's Kirk, I think, is being still to be completed. That's the last project on the programme.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the last question on this item. So if I can now invite the leader of the council to move the report.
Sorry, can I very quickly, I said I'd come back to Councillor McCall if that's okay on that point. Great. So Alan has done sums and very helpfully, users could choose multiple options as part of the survey, for example, if they live in or work here. So that must have been why it's above 100%, but they could choose multiple multiple selections when they were doing the survey, if that helps. But we can delve into it a bit more if that'd be helpful.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. MacDonald, and to your whole team. Councillor Lane.
Thanks again, Provost. At our meeting in September 2024, we approved the draft Perth City Development and Design Framework to go to public consultation. The framework was created as an initial step to enable discussion and dialogue with stakeholders, businesses and the public about the future of Perth City. It aims to identify opportunities for underutilised assets, improve the public realm and promote more diverse uses and activities within the city centre. Our officers have carried out the consultation and revised the framework, and I would like to thank the team for sharing the updated information regarding the framework and the consultations that have been conducted. The consultation helped us to gather opinions and ideas to help formulate a series of projects that could advance to subsequent stages. Whilst not every proposal received a positive response, a reassuring statistic was that overall 66% of the suggestions were met with agreement. While this provides a solid foundation, there was also a desire from many respondents to ensure that short-term aspects such as enhancing retail and leisure options and maintaining a clean and safe city underpin and support the more ambitious long-term proposals. As a result of both the framework and the subsequent initial consultation process, we are now being asked to advance areas identified as key proposals. For each options appraisals will be used to evaluate the potential for adaptive reuse, new development and enhancements to the public realm in alignment with our priorities. Following this, selected projects will move on to concept design, cost estimation and market testing. This phase will produce clear proposals, delivery plans and economic impact assessments to facilitate investment. It is evident that investment will be necessary to bring any developed ideas to fruition. However, it is crucial that when funding opportunities arise, we have a series of well-considered proposals ready for implementation. The first of these proposals, which has been positively supported by stakeholders and the public, is at the station quarter. An option appraisal has been carried out, which is detailed in Appendix 3. The bus and railway station project will allow us to fully mobilise existing funding from the Tay Cities deal and progress a long-awaited project. It is extremely unfortunate that the Tay Cities deal funding and the Network Rail investment does not currently align. A much better proposal would be if these aligned and we could do everything we wanted to do. But this, as I said earlier, we cannot risk losing £16.5 million from Tay Cities deal investment. The revised framework that we have been asked to approve alongside key proposals provides us with a clear direction of travel in our pursuit of transforming Perth into one of Europe's great small cities, where everyone can live well, free from poverty and inequality. I'm very pleased to move this paper for your approval. Thanks.
Mr. Deputy Leader to second.
Thank you, Provost, and thanks to Steve for both an excellent presentation and for the confident answers given to elected members' questions. Thanks also to Alan, Kirsty and Serge for their input as well. This is, as has been stated, an ambitious indicative framework for the future development of our city. It is important to understand that funding is not in place for many of the proposed projects, but this document is nevertheless a vitally important one, as it represents a clear expression of the aspirations of the residents of Perth and Kinross, businesses and other stakeholders in their responses to the recent public consultation. It is apparent from public commentary on social media and elsewhere that some residents are sceptical as to whether councillors actually listen to consultation responses. As this paper demonstrates, we certainly do, and we hear loud and clear that what also matters over and above these projects and alongside future development is the condition of the public realm in the city centre itself, and that we also, insofar as is possible for any local authority, seek to enhance the retail and indeed leisure offering in town. So, Provost, I'm delighted to second the Council Leader's motion and to approve this report and its recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Leader. I have an amendment from Bailey.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you everyone who helped in preparing the report. I'd like to start by aligning myself with Councillor Peter Barrett's comments about Perth Transport Futures Phase 4 and to add my concern to his about the need to move forward on that to achieve on the promised benefits for the city centre. I fully support the bulk of this paper. However, it's disappointing that Network Rail's timelines are not matching ours and Thames City's timelines for the combined bus and rail interchange. In fact, it's more than disappointing. It's not as though Network Rail and Transport Scotland have had insufficient notice that this funding was coming. Thames City's deal was sufficiently locked down when I first got elected in 2017, so they must have known about it before that. That's almost 10 years ago now, 10 years to build some sidings elsewhere for trains to go and sleep at night, so that prime city centre land can be used to bring buses into the actual station. Instead, we're having to settle for the cliche repeated in many towns and cities up and down the country of an avenue with trees along it to entice folk to walk between the bus and train station. Personally, I wonder whether we should even be spending taxpayer money on something that doesn't fully meet the original goal, but I'm not sure that's a popular opinion in that chamber today. In this chamber, sorry. I do, however, propose an amendment in the spirit of trying to avoid ships passing in the night, or should I say bus and train passing in the night. And if that could be shown, oh, it's on screen already. Thank you, Committee Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Provost to second.
Thank you, Rog. It was only 5 days ago that the Cabinet Secretary for Transport announced the formal work on the Fife electrification and now including Tweedbank as well. And I would say that we risk here losing not a once in a lifetime opportunity, but a once in history opportunity. And I accept the reality. I accept entirely the realities of the Tay City deal funding. We absolutely do not want to lose that, and we should proceed on the basis of making the use of the Tay Cities deal funding. But all we seek to do with this amendment, I think, is to point out the historic nature of the loss that we might have in accepting a suboptimal solution for the next 50 or 60 years or whatever, and simply implore that we go on negotiating as hard as we can with Network Rail and ScotRail to see if there are solutions that can actually bring about an optimal solution, and that we do not, if you like, give up the game until the 11th hour or later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Provost. I have a point of clarification from the Leader of the Council.
No, I think Bailey was good enough to let me see the amendment before it came forward. I think he's put up, it's changed slightly from the one that was put on the screen, so that was the point of clarity. But I am happy to accept the amendment into the motion, if that's okay with my seconder.
Indeed, thank you. Councillor Drysdale, are you happy with that?
Funnily enough, it is okay with me too.
Thank you very much. Good to know there's a 3-line whip over there. Okay, so we have that incorporated. I don't see any comments. Councillor John Rebeck, the comment.
Thanks, Provost. I very much welcome this report, although it's aspirational in nature. Where are we without ambition and aspiration? So I really welcome it. I do take the point in the meantime that we have to make sure our city centre is clean, as welcoming as possible, but nonetheless this is a good report. On a slightly parochial manner, I do agree with Councillor Donaldson, as he often raises the Lade. I do agree. I think the Lade can be a really good asset to Perth as it meanders from the town centre through Fairfield and Tulloch out to Hunton Tower. I think a well-maintained walk by water does wonders for people's health and well-being, and I think it's important that we don't forget about that potential opportunity at some point in the future. But I welcome this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Provost. I welcome the report and the many positive comments of support for our plans on the future design of Perth City Centre. This work is much needed in terms of making Perth an even more attractive place to live, work, play and visit. I think, however, that we should also note two areas of comments which came through the consultation and where we may need to pay more attention, and that's firstly in relation to our parking plans throughout the city following the decision to remove Thimble Row car park for PH2O, and secondly the comment around the basics of improving the look and feel of the city centre in respect of retail shopping, but also in terms of having a cleaner, safer city centre. That said, I welcome the latest update on the plan and I am in agreement with the amended motion, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Stephen and Alan and their team for the details of the revised plan before us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Leader, do you wish to sum up at all?
No, I'll forgo that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members will be happy to agree the amended report. Thank you very much. Members, we move to item 8, which is UK City Net Zero Partnership Declaration, and Serge Maroon is going to introduce the report.
Thank you, Provost. The purpose of this report is to ask the Council to sign the UK City Net Zero Partnership Declaration. The main purpose of the partnership is for local authorities to work collectively to achieve carbon reduction savings in partnership with the private sector. This is a voluntary partnership and there's no membership cost associated with the partnership. The Council can benefit from information and experience sharing as we are progressing in our preparations to establish a strategic energy partnership. It will provide us with a national and international platform to promote what we do and attract investment leading to business and job creation. I'm happy to answer any questions, Provost.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions on the report? Question, Leader of the Council.
Thanks, Provost. Serge, it was just to, if you could clarify that we've actually been invited to join this. It's not open to every local authority, and we've been fortunate because of what, is it true that it's work that we've been doing prior over the last few years with officers and working within 3CI and the Scottish Cities Alliance that we've been invited as one of only 2, I think, Scottish cities, along with 18 other cities across the UK. So it's quite an important invitation. I just want, if you could clarify that.
Yes, this is correct. We've been invited to join the partnership based on the work we've done and all the promotion we've done, particularly in our recent investment prospectus, when we effectively highlighted that we're working on the strategic energy partnership, and the work we've done with the 3CI, which is the Climate Change Commission for Investment. And you may remember that we also included in the investments prospectus for 3CI. We were the only 2 Scottish local authority with Glasgow on that one. There was a UK prospectus. So it is the same kind of trend.
Thank you. Councillor Colin Stewart.
Thanks, Provost. It was to ask about section 6, the impact value assessment. The report has been classified as being an operational report, and as such doesn't require a full impact and value assessment. So, question in 2 parts. It strikes me that this is not an operational matter. It's a sort of, well, the actual thing that we're being asked to sign here is a declaration. It's a partnership declaration. It's a direction of travel that the council is choosing or may choose to set. So how is that operational? And 2, in terms of an impact and value assessment, if this is going to commit us to doing stuff like sending officers to 2 to 3 day learning events, or setting up a what was it called, a strategic energy partnership, then surely there are impacts and value coming out of this, which we should see in an assessment.
can answer. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stewart, for that question. I think the impact value assessment process has been changed recently in terms of options for officers to choose from, and that option was chosen. I think, but you may be right. We should have potentially done an impacted value assessment, on that report. However, the main purpose of the impact value assessment are really to look at equality assessment, environmental assessment. So there's quite a areas which will not have effectively been impacted by that report. And there's no, obviously, as I mentioned, there's no cost to the council to join the partnership. The training element for staff, it is an operational matter, so it's about obviously staff being able to access information and experience sharing there.
Okay, Councillor James.
Thanks, Provost, and thanks, Serge, for the information so far. I'm very sceptical about this, and I have huge concerns. One, why are we, Perth, one of the only 2 invitees in Scotland? And the other thing, I'm just wondering if this is going to be used in the future to beat us over the immense amount of green energy projects that we're getting put forward to us, and I'm just wondering if it's going to be used against us in the future.
Thank you for your question. It is an intention as a council effectively that we want to implement what the council has already agreed in terms of these different policies and strategies, in terms of climate change, strategy, in terms of the local heat energy efficiency strategy, the local area energy plan. So this is based on agreed decision by the council already. What it is helping us to do there is to promote what we're trying to do as a council, as an area, to attract investment and businesses into the area, but not at any cost. So it is about looking at if it's effectively fitting what we want to do, and that's why we have policies in place, particularly our planning policies, to make sure that is effectively meeting our requirements, as such. So you have to see it more as a business and investment tool and a promotion tool for the area, to position the area as an area which is effectively investing in clean growth and supporting jobs and business creation in that sector.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any further questions, in which case I'll invite the Leader of the Council to move the report.
Thanks, Provost. As you can see, this is a UK government initiative. I think it's probably been brewing for a while. It's to bring forward best practice, to be taught and look for inward investment, which we're always trying to do in all streams. I think this is actually a big deal for Perth to be invited to have a seat at the table with cities such as Manchester, Liverpool and everything like that, to give a perspective for a more rural local authority. So the Council has been invited to join a network of UK cities that are committed to developing strategic energy partnerships, which we are already in the process of doing. No such network exists at this present time, but the former Mayor of Bristol, Lord Rees of Easton, has taken the initiative to establish this network so that participants can collectively work together to achieve carbon reduction savings in partnership with the private sector. I don't think members will need reminding that energy prices and energy security are a top priority for all levels of government, and transitioning away from fossil fuels, particularly gas, for heating, transport and power lie at the heart of our approach to tackling climate change and fuel poverty. We also see it as a key to a wider socio-economic dividend in terms of improved health, jobs and growth. However, the size of the cost for achieving this, coupled with fiscal constraints on public finances, mean local authorities need to be innovative and collaborative in coming up with solutions. Part of the solution is to allow for greater public-private sector collaboration, with risks and rewards shared more equitably through strategic energy partnerships. Through our Climate Change Action Plan, our Local Area Energy Plan, our Local Heat and Energy Efficiency Strategy Action Plan, and more recently the Perth and Kinross Economic Action Plan, we have already agreed to explore options to set up a Perth and Kinross Strategic Energy Partnership. We are progressing in our preparations to procure a private sector partner to work with us over a long-term period to deliver our proposed Perth City Heat Network and a range of other energy projects. The UK Cities Network will be very useful to us as we embark on a new initiative for this council that many other local authorities like Bristol have already embarked upon. Many more, including larger cities in Manchester, Sheffield, Bradford and Glasgow, have also committed to join. It will provide us with a national and international platform to promote what we do and attract investment. The Council is asked to sign the UK City Net Zero Partnership Declaration and become a member of the group of local authorities supporting the declaration. I'm very pleased to move this paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Waters to second.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, members. I'm happy to second this paper in support of the UK City Net Zero Partnership Declaration and champion a bold and necessary step forward in our collective response to the climate emergency. In Perth and Kinross, we have all long recognised that climate change is not a distant threat. It is a present reality. Our communities are already feeling its effect, and our responsibility as elected representatives is clear. We must act decisively, collaboratively, and with ambition. The City Net Zero Partnerships offers us precisely that opportunity. It is a mechanism designed to bring together local authorities and the private sector in a shared mission to reduce carbon emissions, accelerate clean energy innovation, and unlock the socio-economic benefits that come with a just transition. By signing this declaration, we join cities like Glasgow, Bristol, Manchester, and many others who are not waiting for change, but leading it. We also position Perth and Kinross as a place of vision, investment, and action. Our inclusion in the City Net Zero Investment Portfolio to be launched during New York Climate Week will amplify our voice on the international stage and attract partners we need to deliver real change. This is not just about carbon, it's about jobs, it's about health, and it's about prosperity. It is about creating a future where our children breathe clean air, where our homes are warmer, and where our economy thrives on innovation. Through the partnership, we will gain access to shared technical expertise, legal frameworks, and procurement models. We will participate in learning exchanges and roundtables that strengthen our capacity to deliver. And crucially, we will speak with one voice to governments and investors, unlocking funding and shaping policy that supports our ambitions. Members, this is not just a declaration, it's a declaration of intent, an intent to lead, to innovate, and to deliver. Let us seize this moment, let us sign the declaration, and let us continue to build a Perth and Kinross that is not only net zero, but future ready.
Thank you very much. First comments from Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Provost. I'm comfortable with us signing the partnership agreement to improve collaboration between public and private sector partners. I think the agreement in itself does not commit us to any specific timescales or investment, but it will enhance our work and options, and it may be that partnership with private companies may bring some additional realism around timescale and costs. I do, however, understand any concerns there may be around it being seen as a green light for some of the large wind farm, solar and battery storage proposals. However, I think we should be clear that this cannot be taken as support for such plans in themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor John Rebeck.
Thanks again, Provost. I really welcome this report as well, given what part of the discussion was this morning. Not by no means all of the discussion, but a very important part of the discussion this morning was around flooding. And I agree with Councillor Waters that I've been up to my knees in dirty water with colleagues standing behind me at Fuse Road and other parts of Perth City North to know that climate change is here and now. It's arrived already. So anything that we can do of an innovative and collaborative way to help our city and their surrounding towns and villages, I'm really welcoming that. And so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Provost.
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, the fact that we've been invited to join this grouping reflects very well on a lot of hard work and effort put in by our council officers over the past few years, and for that we should be grateful. And I think also within this grouping, Perth, I believe, is very much the smallest city that is involved in this grouping, and that, I think, allows us to take a different perspective and actually provide different opportunities for some of those who may wish to invest. And so I think that this is a hugely positive move that we should applaud. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jack Welch.
Again, I'd like to recognise the work of officers and this administration. Essentially, low carbon, low cost energy is a driver of prosperity, high quality jobs, and investment and innovation. So it's great to hear that progress has been made, and hopefully will be enhanced with this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Leader, do you wish to sum up?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Members are happy to agree the report. Thank you. Members, item 9 is committee timetable of meetings 2026-2027, and Scott Henry, Democratic Service Manager, is going to provide a brief summary of the timetable.
Thank you, Provost. Members, just to advise, since the publication of the timetable as part of the agenda pack, we've received further feedback from some elected members, so I'm now actually proposing that we defer consideration of the timetables until the next council meeting on the 29th of October.
Okay, thank you. Are members content to defer decision until the October full council? Thank you. Members, item 10 is the appointments to committees and outside bodies. Are members happy to agree the changes as set out on the agenda, and in addition to that, agree that Councillor Neil Freshwater replaces Councillor Andy Chan on the licensing committee? Agreed. Thank you. Members, item 11 is senior councillor remuneration. Are members happy to agree the senior councillor remuneration changes as set out on the agenda? Agreed. Thank you. Members, item 12 is elected member briefing notes. Since we last met on the 18th of June 2025, are members happy to note the briefing notes issued to elected members since that time? Noted. Thank you. Members, item 13 is a valedictory for Stephen Crawford, our Head of Property Services. Our Leader of Council is going to make a brief statement here.
Yeah, actually, this statement will segue nicely into the valedictory, I think, as a lot of the work has been done by Mr. Crawford and his colleagues to get us to this position. So, Provost, members of the council, before we finish this meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to provide a short update in relation to Puller House and the Kinross Street multi-storey car park. I bet you thought it was going to be about Blair Gowrie Recreation Centre, but thankfully there's no update as far as I know today on that one. At the meeting on the 4th of September 2024, the Council resolved to exercise its contractual right to purchase both Pooler House and the adjoining car park. As we know, these are buildings which the Council has leased for the last 25 years in terms of a public finance initiative. Following that resolution, taken as part of the Perth City Integrated Investment Proposal, it is expected that as of tomorrow, the 11th of September, the Council will become the owner of both of these buildings. This is a move which is estimated to deliver annual savings to the Council of £1.8 million. As members are aware, a number of the other public sector agencies will co-locate in Pooler House, which will assist us in meeting the revenue and capital costs. It will also facilitate more close working with these agencies in more sense than one. The operation of the car park will be taken over by the Council, and as part of that change, 7 employees from Smart Parking and Robertson's will be joining as employees of the Council. I welcome them, and I hope that they will enjoy the transfer to the Council's workforce. There are still some final stages of the purchase process being finalised, which officers are managing, none of which will prevent us from taking ownership tomorrow. But fuller details will be provided at Finance and Resources Committee next month. So to conclude, this is an important development for the Council. I thank officers across the Council, especially in property, legal and estates teams, and also our external advisors for the work undertaken to reach this point. In case of questions, just to clarify, due to commercial sensitivities, I do not propose to go into further detail today, but an update will be provided at the Finance and Resources Committee next month. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there was a question, but you answered that, so that's fine. So you can sit down. Thank you very much for the update. And we now move on to item 13, which is the valedictory for Stephen Crawford. And I think a few of the groups might have a representative to come up and speak as well if they want to join me for this. Mr. Crawford might like to come and join us as well. The longest walk of your life, Stephen, walking across the council chamber. The UK government a few years ago ran a series of adverts, and that series of adverts where your next job could be in whatever, and they just don't know it yet. Well, Fraser Croft's next job is certainly not going to be in the Secret Service, as he handed Stephen Crawford a copy of the valedictory when it arrived in the chamber there. Stephen has been our strategic lead and prior to that our head of property services for the past 11 years. He retires next month, so it's appropriate we take a moment to mark his significant legacy to the council. And the benefit of being head of property is actually there's usually quite a bit of significant legacy because buildings tend to stand a lot longer than you're working. So actually you've got lots of legacy items that you can point to and said, I did that. It's a bit harder with some of the softer service stuff. So Stephen's got a quarter of a century of unbroken public service behind him. Not quite a full provost, since that's how we measure senior officer terms. And you didn't quite make it that far, but you know, you did quite well. 25 years is not bad. He started out in Midlothian Council in 2000 before joining Clacks in 2010, and finally saw sense in 2014 when he joined Perth Kinross and joined the big boys. Since joining Perth Kinross 11 years ago, he's played a pivotal role in delivering our infrastructure projects, of which there has been a lot actually in that period of time, and that have been a significant part of transforming how we work as a council, but also how our communities are served. And these will continue to be things that will benefit residents, of which you are one, for many years to come. The projects include, and there is quite a few of them, so you'll have to bear with me a bit here, Perth Theatre, Perth Museum, Blair Gowrie Recreation Centre, which had an honourable mention a minute ago, Berth Park High School, Riverside Primary School, and of course the new Perth High School. But he's also overseen considerable consolidation of the council's property assets during his tenure. As leader of the council just outlined, he oversaw the Pooler House Public Sector Hub initiative, which is just coming to its fruition tomorrow, so just in time before your departure. He oversaw the Port asset review, and these two things have been significant in changing the way we work as a council. The other ones are significant builds, but actually it's about changing the approach, not just within his own service, but actually within other services. That those latter two projects have been significant in terms of legacy. He has had a significant commitment to sustainability, not just from a financial point of view, although it is a very significant financial thing as well, and has put us at the forefront of modern construction. So a lot of our buildings have become passive house standard or similar in that time frame. And we are leading the way, I would like to say, I think probably in terms of local authorities on that front. Others have been claiming, if you've been watching the news elsewhere, you see all these headlines, first passive house school in Scotland, etc., and all this sort of thing. And actually, we got there first. So, and that is testament to Stephen. There are, as we've discussed, many of the impact on the built environment, but one of the things that a lot of people won't be aware, and particularly maybe some new elected members who joined us in 2022, that Stephen during the COVID pandemic had a totally different role. He his logistical and organisational skills were deployed in a totally different way, and he led the council's response to food delivery and to vaccination management. And at the height of it was ensuring that 1,000 vulnerable people every day in Perth and Kinross were being vaccinated. And those of you who know Stephen well will know that he's all about organisation and Gantt charts, spreadsheets, and all these sorts of things. So that fits his background very well. Through it, Stephen has very much led with integrity and determination, and a deep commitment to public service. He's very much about how are we delivering this for the whole of the public sector, not just for the council. And some of the projects we mentioned earlier around Pooler House and Pitlochry, they are actually much wider about how the whole public sector works together. Sometimes he would have got away with it if it wasn't for those pesky elected members who get in the way sometimes. And particularly his new negotiation skills came into a new level when he became strategic lead and had to manage some of the very demanding requests, particularly perhaps of the council leader and a particular provost with some of these projects. So well done on that, and warning to John Beveridge, who's sitting behind me as he prepares to take up the role. Shepherding big projects like this is very complex, obviously, and very high profile. I'm sure that's probably not actually Stephen's preferred thing. Stephen likes to work away hard in the background, so some of that will have not been his favourite part of the role. But it has been something that he has embraced and has delivered on significantly. And as these projects have come to fruition, they are real significant moments in a career of anyone, and actually to achieve one of them in your career would be significant. To have achieved the number that you have achieved is incredibly significant, so you should be very proud of that. Stephen's determination doesn't really stop there, though. In his personal life, Stephen is very determined as well. He once travelled 10,000 miles from Islamabad to New York, apparently, and that means that Stephen's well aware of the occasional bump on the road. And I've been told that he has had more than a few bumps in the road when he's been out cycling on a few different hair-raising occasions, one of them bone-shattering, and did very well to get away with your life, I think, Stephen. So you've maybe taken it a bit more carefully since then, one hopes, although perhaps not. At one point after his accident, I'm told, he did decide to challenge his team to beat the boss. So it was for a triathlon. 3 members of the team did each of the 3 legs, and Stephen did all 3. And they narrowly won, and Stephen was immediately demanding a rematch to try and to make sure that he could come out on top on that one. So he's quite competitive as well, if you hadn't noticed. His leadership has obviously been significant and instrumental in bringing these projects to development. He will be remembered to his colleagues as being driven and inspiring, and sets very high standards for his team as well, and that's something we would all recognise. He is recognised as being brilliant to work with, and that's despite him being very direct when he's having conversations. His directness is probably only matched on the officer side by our own chief executive, who can be quite direct at some points as well. He will challenge others and their assumptions and is brutally honest. And sometimes he's met with some of that on the elected member side, not looking anywhere in particular. Has set very high expectations for his team, which I'm sure John Beveridge will continue in the role. However, that does reflect well on him. His team had the highest satisfaction of any team in the staff satisfaction survey, and that's a no mean feat. So, or they was suggesting to me they might have been too terrified to do anything else. So, yeah, the world, I can believe that part. So, what's next for Stephen? Well, he's a bit of a fitness fanatic, as we've discussed a bit, but I asked what he's likely to be doing in his retirement and was not surprised to hear it would be cycling and running and going to the gym and all these other sorts of things. Apparently his boss still says he thinks he's 21, and so do I sometimes, but sadly that's not the case. Sometimes we maybe need to take ourselves a bit more carefully. But I think that's probably what most of his retirement plans involved, lots more active time out on the bike. What I was going to say, actually, I was told, and I think maybe John Beveridge was exaggerating slightly when he told me this. He says you've got something like 20 bikes in your garage, Stephen. Now, this didn't sound like a very good use of budgetary resources in the Crawford household. And I thought that maybe once you've got all this free time in your hands, you'll be able to carry out an asset review of that and maybe reduce that number to a much more economical amount. Of course, such an active lifestyle does require something to sustain you. And I'm told that in budget meetings with Barbara Renton, he could easily go through a packet of Marcus biscuits all on his own. I'm not quite sure what that says more about Stephen or Barbara, but I don't think it looks particularly good on either of them, to be honest. So, but apparently his family are also committed vegetarians. Stephen's a bit less committed, apparently, and does like to take advantage of when he comes to work. So he might have a bit of a struggle when he's retired and finds himself solely in the vegetarian world. I'm sure you'll be allowed to come back occasionally to visit us. And I think also I'm told that he's very partial to some of the fudge that exists on the third floor. There are a couple of guilty offices where comms and the head of finance offices, which are always filled with sweet treats. And Stephen, on his way as he rushes around the building, and Stephen's a bit nomadic and he doesn't have an office, he likes to run around the building and he turns all the radiators down like any dad does, basically, as he goes past them to make sure there's none of these radiators on. But he's on his way usually to the fudge. And finally, though, I've had a request, Stephen, that you do turn the heating down before you go. Not surprisingly from Claire Mailer, as you might imagine, who has her secret radiator that you don't know about under her desk that is coming out shortly for its winter showing. Stephen, you will be a very missed colleague. You have provided huge contributions both to this council but also to Perth Kinross as a whole. You are very well respected both here within the council, within our partners and in our communities, and I know that from my own experiences working alongside you, and we wish you all the very best with your retirement. I'm sure it will be very active, and I'm sure we can find things for you to do in your retirement as well, so don't run away too far. I'd like to invite Councillor Duff up first to speak.
Thank you, Provost. Stephen, I just wanted to take the opportunity to echo the comments which have been made and to thank you for your many years of service to local government. Over my time at the council, which is only a fraction of the time that you've been here, we've always had, I think, a close working relationship, and one that I've always found to be both enjoyable and respectful. And I thank you for that. There have been many projects over the years, many of which were dictated there by the Provost, and you've recently obviously been delivered on a number of these particular projects, and I'll not go through them all, but in my time, you know, we've had the Riverside Primary School, Perth High School, Blairgowrie Rec, Perth Museum, and obviously your work on things like PH2O and also the Puller House, Canal Street purchase and things like that. The passive house element of that has been, I think, a particularly interesting and probably a steep learning curve, I think, for you in relation to that. And I was delighted to go to Blairgowrie Recreation Centre recently and to see the passive house work up a bit closer and exactly what's involved in all of that. And it's actually quite amazing the energy efficiency benefits that the council will get from these projects. And that's, what's that now? Riverside, Perth High, Blairgowrie Rec are all up and running and delivered. And I think that does make us probably at the forefront of local authorities in terms of passive house in possibly in the UK, if not just in Scotland. And I think, you know, we will have to thank you for many years for the work on that, because I think it will stand us in good stead as a local authority. So you do leave us, I think, with a significant legacy of your time here that you can be very proud of. You will be missed by us as councillors and by your colleagues, I'm sure, as officers. And I hope that you'll enjoy health and happiness wherever the next step of your journey takes you. And I wish you very well in all that you do. Thank you.
Councillor Liz Barrett next, please.
Stephen, we are genuinely sorry to see you leaving the council, and we do wish you all the very best in whatever you do next, apart from all the sporty stuff, obviously. You have something of the quiet man about you, displaying calm under pressure, even if you weren't feeling that. Other words my Lib Dem colleagues have used to describe you are committed, your ability, your honesty, your realism, inspiring confidence, tenacity, being approachable and helpful. And I certainly endorse all of these. We believe you've made an immense contribution to the council and across the council. As Xander said, your efforts have driven and realised a vision and benefits across the council's capital programme and major investments and construction projects, including the new schools, council houses, office accommodation, disposal and modernisation, and most recently sports and leisure and parking facilities. And we're also aware of the target that these matters put on your back for local media and the chattering classes to take aim at, and we are truly sorry that you had to put up with that. The way you've transformed our approach to property management and property services has got rid of the previous salami slicing of property maintenance budget, which was once considered the balancing exercise of council budgets, with a strategic corporate vision that prioritises asset management approach and delivering energy efficiencies and savings and much more integrated working across services in a much less siloed and fractured landscape. The other Councillor Barrett, who's unfortunately not able to be with us at the moment, said his only criticism of you, and it goes back to the quiet man comment I made at the start, Stephen always made telling, opposite and important contributions in this chamber, but to Peter's mind was never loud enough. So now, at my behest, he's away to see audiology at PRI next week. So he's actually admitting it was maybe all his fault all along. So once again, thank you and good luck. Thank you.
Bailey.
Thank you. People who've seen me do these before will know that I often dive into my old emails to find out what my first email correspondence was with the retiree. For this one, it wasn't particularly exciting, but it did show Stephen's adaptability. It was us communicating back and forth about volunteers during COVID for the Castle Gallery and contributing to Central Hub, which I think was at the Jewers Centre, the Bells, sorry. So as Provost said, it spoke really to the adaptability. I've always had massive appreciation for Stephen's attention to detail, respecting the detail of energy and heating costs in particular, as Provost mentioned. There's a trope about us middle-aged men and our tendency to go round turning in lights and heating off all the time. Stephen, you reached a pinnacle of that and one-upped most of us by being able to do that across an entire public estate. And I mean your But let's remember it was taxpayer money, not his own, that he was saving with the flip of every switch, and that's to be honoured. We'll be sorry to see you go, and thank you for all the help you've given members and our residents over the years, Stephen. Thank you. Enjoy your
Leader of the Council.
Say, but just listening to people there, I want to ask the question, how much money have you been in control of in your last, even since you've been a strategic lead?
One particular phrase reminds Stuart Mackenzie, our head of finance, said he used to budget on capital underspends until I came along. And I always do that. It was a positive complaint.
Yeah, that's good. And I can't really add much to what everybody else has said, and the Provost and Councillor Barrett and Councillor Duff and Bailey. But I think what you've done, it's not the buildings that you've left, and the things you've left a team behind you that will be able to take your place, because you've been allowed to let your team learn themselves and come up. And it's great that we've been able to appoint from within to have John Beveridge. But you've brought forward some great people that have just been underneath you and learned off you. And I think that's your legacy rather than the buildings you've done. It's the team and the position you've left Perth Kinross property group in. So it's not just, I think, as I've said, the buildings that you've done and the actual physical things you've done. It's the learning, it's the letting people grow into themselves and grow into a job through that. And that, to me, is your biggest legacy for Perth Kinross Council.
I've got a point of clarification for the Leader of the Council, since I know the answer to his question, since I had officers added up earlier on. Stephen's overseen over £200 million worth of capital build during his tenure, so it's quite a significant amount of money. You mean respond if you wish. Okay, thank you very much for all those kind words. For once, you'll appreciate, one, it's the graveyard slot, but two, I don't have a. Sorry, I also don't have a PowerPoint. When I joined in 2014, I did wonder, there was a question in my mind when I was appointed by Jim Valentine, whether he wanted a new head of service or he wanted a faster runner as part of the environment service kilt race team to be education. I was also told by a former head of service that Jim didn't like being beaten, and in the race, I shouldn't beat him. Whoops. So, I mean, first and foremost, I think, thank you for those warm words, but I think I am merely the face in front of a very strong property team. So, everything that you talked about today, I have merely fronted that. I would pay credit, and I think we always talk about big projects and things like that, but I would pay credit to a lot of the unheralded work that goes unseen in my team. And I talk about caretakers, Tayside contracts, all my maintenance contractors, my maintenance team. We run 24/7 operations, not just big sexy projects. And I would, as well as my contractors, my consultants, my professional teams that assist and deliver capital expenditure, but certainly laterally under new guidance and with your approval, bring corporate asset management to the fore. I am sorry for all staff and members who are cold, but that's the policy. I joined Perth Kinross Council, or I enjoyed local government from the private sector. I have to say I was relatively ignorant of the responsibilities that local government has. And no private business would actually take on the full gambit of what we are accountable for. I think we're very good at it. You mentioned the COVID situation, where I had the privilege of leading the food recovery and then the vaccination. We did it really well. We redeployed staff from outside property, from right across the service, into doing different things. We
We actively worked with the community. We had, if I think of vaccinations, we had 300, 400 community volunteers on that. We had 13, 14 community teams in the outside of what we were doing in Bells, all with a big process supporting the need, and it was fantastic. It also gave me as an opportunity, because I had redeployed planning staff under my management to tell planners what to do for once, rather than them tell me what to do. I think, on reflection, I consider it time to go. As you say, we are a lot of the projects we've delivered recently on the back of net zero emergency, on the back of challenging quality issues, and I know that's at scrutiny next week, but we've actually taken big steps forward and are seen as a leader in property services and Perth Kinross Council of doing things right. We've ironically won a number of awards recently for the capital projects we've delivered. Amazon Meaning QS always look at that. I've obviously spent too much money on that, or in terms of the RIAS award, Client of the Year, obviously not been hard enough on any of the consultants or contractors. I've particularly enjoyed the last few years bringing forward the ambitious property projects in terms of pulling together the property portfolio, seeing if we can deal with many of our priorities, but from the asset-led priorities. So Pitlochry was a classic case of saying, how do we remodel all this, deliver more from a smaller property base, but deal with in terms of reallocating sites to housing as part of a jigsaw. That's just good common sense, and it's been great to have presented that. So we've done things at Pitlochry. We've obviously you've commented on what we've done in the city centre, and the leisure asset estate is the subject of a case study that Sport Scotland want to look at in their review of the school estate, and that's what we're drafting up just now. So I think under your direction, Thomas and Claire's leadership, and absolute support from my SLT colleagues, and I would say that this is not just about property, this is about legal, this is about communications, and this is the whole team effort of bringing some of the reports I've brought to you, and my thanks for supporting us. I'm really glad to be handing over to John and the young property team. I do get my bus pass next year, and have every confidence in the successful continuation of the good work of property services. And as a resident of Kinross, I look forward to tracking the success of the council. I promise not sending in any FOIs. And when built, swimming in the redesigned and PHDO when it comes along. So my sincere thanks for the fantastic 11 years with the council. My absolute thanks to my team and the senior management team, and I wish you every success in the future.
And just finally to say all the very best, Stephen, from all of us, and that concludes today's council meetings. Thank you for your forbearance.